Alright everyone, here we are for the part 12 of the best PC racing simulator in F1 24. We're at Monza. I'm in a Ferrari. I qualified really badly in 15th, I believe. And here we are off the start line quickly for a 13 lap race that will include a pit stop here, so we'll get to see how that works. As you can see, the AI actually did make it through the first chicane, which, the Monza chicane tends to blow up AI in just about every sim, so gotta say, okay, at least that's a good starting sign for F1 24. I'm not running the game in VR. I did try it in VR. It was just a little bit too hard on the eyes, I guess, is what I would say. You had to turn the graphics way down. It was a bit jittery and a bit unstable, it felt like, so it just kind of started to bother me. And so I just said, nah, we'll just run it on the monitor, and that way you guys can see graphically what it looks like a little more clearly. Oh yeah, right here I decided to change how the button worked for the ERS, and this whole menu system would shift around every time. So depending on what menu options were there, it would shift the entire menu system. It was very annoying and very hard to get used to, because you can't essentially get used to it because it would shift all around. Every time you go into the menu system, it'd be different layouts, so I don't understand why they did that, but so yeah, now I've got the overtake as a button that you hold. But yeah, graphically, I think F1 24 looks good. I mean, EA, has done a good job with progressing the game over the years. It doesn't look that much different from, the 2020 version of the game, but certainly it does have VR capable now, and it looks good. All the cars are there, all the drivers even are there, and anytime they try to model a human, it tends to look kind of strange, and there are definitely cases of that, but overall I'd say they look pretty good. So, but yeah, graphics are solid. Now, I am playing with my wheel, of course, as normal, and a lot of the comments for this year's game is that it seems that they might have shifted the physics a little more towards the arcade side, or at least a little bit more towards gamepad users, and I think I can agree with that for the most part. The game is not very sim-like in most ways. It feels maybe a little less sim than the last version of this game I played, which I believe was maybe 21 or 22. But it's definitely drivable in a sense. The cars do feel like they have a lot of grip, because they just kind of feel like they stick to the road all the time. But there can be situations where they just snap out of, lose traction out of nowhere, and usually it happens on the throttle. If you run without traction control, it can be kind of tricky sometimes to actually put the throttle down. It seems like to me that's the only point of the game that's actually difficult to drive, and not in a really a logical way. It's just a very canned effect way, it seems to me, where if you go over certain throttle percentage on an exit with a certain amount of turn angle, it can just snap the rear end. So yeah, physics-wise, tire-wise, it's not great. It's not, it's not really a simulator as we would expect, or maybe think about compared to a lot of the other sims in this contest. But hey, it's okay. It's fun. Force feedback is not really there a whole lot. I mean, it doesn't really tell you much of what's actually going on. It's more just vibration forces, similar to how it is in WRC, where you just get some forces. I would say it's actually maybe slightly worse in F1, because it's just pretty numb, and doesn't really tell you a whole lot overall. Now, actually using the ERS and the VRS and all that is a pretty I think it's probably exaggerated quite a bit compared to reality, but it's a pretty interesting way to kind of be able to make up time. I almost ran Russell off the road and he was not having it. So yeah, you gain a lot of speed with the overtake button, and obviously the DRS as well, so you can combine those things. Now, what's interesting, moving on to the sounds in the game, is the ERS makes the engine sound really strange to me. Kind of get this weird high pitch. It's pretty annoying. So I'll let you listen to it for like a few seconds here. So yeah, you can see if you let off the ERS, then it tops out your top speed. But if you keep the overtake mode on, it will rev the engine out in 8th gear significantly, and it definitely sounds a bit annoying when you get all the way to the high revs right there. So yeah, I'm not sure what to make the sounds. They're not really my favorite. I don't really think they. F1 cars don't really sound that good now anyway, but yeah. They're okay, but they're a little bit annoying. You can see I'm bumping the AI a good bit, but overall they do race okay. I did have to restart this race several times due to the AI making some weird moves, or just me just kind of not understanding what was going on or how the grip of the car was. So I did have to restart several times, but yeah, the AI was okay. Alright, we're going to pit in this lap. Now the pitting in is not manual, it's manual until you get to the pit lane, and then it turns automatic, and you have to do this like timed turn to turn into your pit box. I found that to be a bit strange with a wheel. I think it's one of those things with a gamepad, you just flick the stick and it would be easier to time it, but with the wheel it's hard to actually time it. So every time I did this, I got a late timing on it, which slowed your pit stop down. Yeah, a bit slow of a pit there. But overall, it ended up working out. I came out about the same spot I had entered the pit.
That was our last stop. No more scheduled pit stops. Let's go.
So there we are now on the medium tire, which didn't feel any different than the soft tire. It did maybe feel a little bit grippier coming out of the pits with new tires versus the softs that were worn. And I do remember this from previous versions of the game, that you would actually sense an increase in grip when you change tires, and so that was good to see that was still there in some way. I did also do some looking around with setups and tweaking the setups, and found some of the Fast Guys setups on the time trials. And it seems like with this game, this year's F1 game, it's definitely like the other ones where you're running very extreme setups, where you run the ride height in the rear as low as you can, and the ride height in the front as high as you can, and you run the absolute max camber that you can run, and the softest roll bars, and maybe highest tire pressure. So it's a bit unfortunate that the game does kind of allow you to run these extreme setups that are not realistic, and actually results in better times and better speed that way. Well, the AI definitely got bottled up right there. We got a big concertina effect with people coming out of the pits. I don't really recommend running this game with full damage, because it's just, you're going to damage your front wing, and as soon as you damage your front wing, you can't really run the same lap times. And so it happens too often that the AI just kind of changes speed very quickly, and you're gonna bump them. So you definitely want to turn it down to maybe standard or reduced damage even. So the single player in F1, that's the primary reason most people buy it, is for the career mode, and of course you can create your own team, or you can jump in a current team. And there's a lot of management and car development that happens in between races. That's really where the meat of the game is. And I remember playing seasons of this in the games from past years, and it is quite fun for a while. It's quite fun to develop the car and try to move Williams up from the back of the grid to the front. And now they do have additional settings in the career mode, so you can make it harder to basically outdevelop the opponents, the other teams, or just slow down development or increase fail rates, so that it makes it a longer process. So I think they've really given people a lot to do within the career mode, and it's really something you can kind of sink your teeth into, especially if you want to make your own team and kind of do something a little different. It's really neat. I definitely think that's cool. They've also got something called F1 World, which is a whole nother side where you essentially have your own car and team. It's where basically you have the standardized F1 car, and you can do all the online stuff over there, and you want to make money that you can use to purchase better stuff for your car and better crew members or team members. So there's a lot to unlock in the game. There's essentially like a battle pass style unlock system, of course, and I'm sure there's ways to spend money, which is always part of that. So, but the single player is certainly well developed at this point. They've been working on it for a long time, and it is really fun to go through. Now, to me, after a certain point, I just kind of grow tired of developing the car. And the biggest problem is all games that you're relying on AI like this, it's very hard to get them to a spot where you're racing where you want to race, but it is also a bit uncertain. So it seems like it's either you're winning by a lot or you're losing by a lot. It's hard to find that point there in the middle. And then the problem is every track, they're going to be a little bit different. They're going to be slower at some tracks, faster at other tracks, or maybe you're faster at some tracks than others. So you have to almost make a table somewhere and do some testing to get the AI dialed in. And if you're into that, you can certainly make it competitive and fun. But yeah, the single player is definitely the meat of the game. But I think obviously with F1 being so big and this game being on consoles, there's a lot of players playing F1 24 online as well. So I don't think there's any issue in finding online races. I jumped in a couple of them, and the big problem is if you just jump into quick races in F1, you're going to get most people on a controller, and it's going to be a complete disaster. Thinking about Monza Turn 1 in a multiplayer lobby is just, everybody knows what that's like, right? So I'm sure that's the same. But there are additional kind of league and ranked competitions and content that you can do. And of course, obviously, they do have an esports presence with F1. However realistic or unrealistic it is, okay, but it's there, so you can certainly approach it from that aspect if you want to. And in that sense, it's got all of it's there for you to try to, to go play it in that way. So. The Ferrari is obviously not the fastest car, but I was able to make my way up. I think I had the AI set at 93 or 94 here, and they were probably just a little too slow because obviously I qualified too far back, but was able to make my way up to, I think maybe 4th place, maybe 3rd or 4th, I can't remember. So I think I might be in 5th here, and then I don't know if I passed both of these cars before the end. And there's that full ERS mode. Somehow my teammate was doing the same thing, and somehow George Russell, without DRS, was able to defend double DRS at Monza. So I don't really understand how that worked, because he should have been passed by both of us. But, you know, EA F1 game, so. They were really slow breaking into the second chicane, but then these next two corners, they were really fast in. Like, they would gain on me, especially in the second right-hander, every time they'd gain on me onto this straight, which made it a bit hard to defend. You do really gain the ERS energy back really quickly though, so you can use it a whole lot. Like every lap you can use it a lot. It actually feels like maybe too much, but I don't know how it compares to what they're doing in the real cars, but I don't think they're probably using it this much, but you certainly can. And I don't know where the car development is at this point in the game. I'm sure they've adjusted things to kind of match more of the modern pace of the cars, so McLaren is definitely faster, and you know, they already kind of, I'd say, leveled the playing field a little bit from reality. Obviously, they don't have Max winning every race, right? Lando's winning this race. I think he ends up winning it. And, you know, Max is a good bit behind him, actually. So, you know, which is, I guess, has happened in a couple races. And maybe just now Red Bull doesn't have the best car anymore, or it's at least much closer. So, Mercedes is up there. And then, yeah, I'd say Ferrari's probably the fourth best car in the game. So, you know, it's pretty close. They do a good job of trying to match what's going on in the real season.
The McLaren drivers just moved into first place.
Actually, might be a McLaren 1-2 here. I can't remember. And yeah, F1 costs what you would expect an EA Sports, you know, an EA game to cost when it comes out. It's, I think, pretty much $70, and then there's an Ultimate Edition, I think, that you can buy that's more, and then of course you can always spend more money in the game. They make that very, very easy to do, so if you want to unlock some of their digital currency to buy other liveries for your online car, or livery options, race suits, helmets, you know, that kind of thing, and then I'm sure there's some other parts to that. You can spend some more of your hard-earned money to have some different paint schemes. So, but yeah, the game is priced right where you would think it would be priced, and it will stay that price probably, you know, until maybe late in the fall. Maybe it stays that price all the way until the next game releases. You know, they don't seem to reduce the price of these games too much. I'm sure they sell a lot of copies of this primarily on console, right? The PC side of it is certainly the minority. By the way, there still is no mouse support in F1 24, so I guess they're just never going to do that. It's almost become like a thing now where I think that Codemasters just says, yeah, no, we're not adding mouse support just because we don't want to add mouse support because you guys want it so badly. But everyone's just realized, well, I guess you got to use a keyboard or use the mouse D-pad, or I'm sorry, the wheel D-pad or something to navigate the game menus. So, yep, Norris wins. I think Max was second, so I think I was fourth.
I tried everything there it is.
There it is. All right, guys. Well, that's that. Let's move in and score F1 24. Okay, y'all, let's get in here and score F1 24. We'll do this pretty quickly since the race was a little bit longer, and I think we know where we stand on this one. So starting out with graphics, I think the game looks good. It's not maybe perfect, but it definitely has a good graphical look, and I think it's better than a lot of older Sims, of course. So graphically, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Physics, tires, and force feedback. all kind of fall into this realm of just kind of mid, and really just below mid. They're not really that detailed. The game is quite simplified. It's definitely SimCady at the very best. It's definitely designed more for a gamepad. However, it's not bad to drive, and I think it is fun to drive on a certain level, but certainly it doesn't stand up to most of the other Sims that we've modeled or scored, I mean, in their models. So we're going to give it a 4 on physics, a 4 on tires, and a 4 on force feedback. So just below average across the board. Sounds wise, I don't really enjoy the sounds that much in F1 24. They're somewhat grating and annoying, and when you're hearing the car run at high RPM for a good amount of the race, and it sounds weird when you're pumping the ERS at the same time, I just don't really like it. So 7 out of 10 for sounds. The content in F1 is good. I mean, the F1 cars are all there. They're all modeled appropriately. Then they have a standardized car. I didn't bother driving the F2 cars this time. Previous versions of the game, the F2 cars have been absolutely terrible, and you can tell they're just a tacked on part of the game. So I would expect they're probably pretty much the same. I really wish they would expand this. They could bring in other cars related to Formula One, like F3, and you know, maybe they will at some point. Although, you know, all the tracks are there. They're all done well. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 for content. That may be a bit generous, but they do represent the F1 license, I think, quite well. AI and single player, well, the AI is not super great, but they're definitely raceable. But the single player part of the game is definitely where you're going to spend most of your time, and it's really well put together when you compare it to all the other Sims that we've scored. So it's a 10 out of 10. The multiplayer player base is good. It's solid. Obviously, there's a lot of console and gamepad players, but there's a lot of people to play online with in this game because it's a popular EA game. It's the Formula One game. So I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. I don't think there's as many people playing this as something like Madden, of course, but there's plenty of people playing it. The rank system is decent. I think it gives you a good amount of what you would want in a multiplayer ranked kind of system. It's rather confusing and convoluted, and certainly it's not simple to me like iRacing or LMU. So I'm just going to give it a 6 out of 10. It's kind of there, and it's kind of all over the place, and it probably fragments the player base a good bit, how they have it set up. But that's what that is. And then the cost, well, this is kind of what the whole average cost was based on, was a game like this. This falls right in that $70 price range, maybe slightly more if you want to buy the Ultimate Edition, but you don't have to. That's just add-on stuff. So it's a 5 out of 10. So that brings F1 24 to a total of 64 out of 100. Not a great score, obviously, kind of all expected that, but it's a good game. If you want to play a good, first of all, it's the only official F1 game, of course, but if you want a good single-player game, it can give you that, and I do think it's fun to put some hours into that side of it. So, all right, guys, we have finished all of the Sims. So in the next video, it will be the finale, where we will go over the awards and the results of the scoring and see which Sim makes the top of the list. So I hope to see you in part 13, the finale video. And until then, happy sim racing, and we'll see y'all later.